Welcome back to the Psychic Scene with Jennifer Jean. Welcome to my spooky Halloween edition for October 31st, 2020. So I included a picture of a full moon because we are having a full moon on Halloween this year, and it's the first time since 1944 that this has happened, so it should be extra spooky. Anyway, today I want to talk about my favorite Halloween films, or ones that have scared me or that I really enjoy. And I would have to say I'm not the biggest Halloween person, but I've always loved scary movies. I love that feeling of being scared. And even when I was a kid, I'd have nightmares all the time about clowns and dolls and everyday types of things. And I'd always ask my parents, am I going to have bad dreams? There's something about a spooky movie that really gets your blood tingling and really gets you excited, especially this time of year. So here we go. We're going to count down from number 5. So this one is called The House That Dripped Blood. And it is one of the Hammer horror series, I believe, or it is similar to those. It stars the same stars that were in those movies. Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing, and Ingrid Pitt, and I'm really obsessed with her right now. She is the best vampire. Anyway, these were filmed back in the 60s and 70s. And this movie, I think, is great because it has a little bit of everything in it. So it's 4 stories adapted by the writer Richard Bloch, and it's about this creepy house in England and all the tenants that cycled through it and how they met their demise. So the first one is about a psychopathic strangler. And then there's another one that's about decapitated heads in a wax museum. There's an evil child that has a voodoo doll, and then of course it ends with vampires, and that's the one with Ingrid Pitt, and I just love her in this film. I just think there's something for everyone in this film, so you should definitely check it out, but maybe check out some of the others from the Hammer horror series. There's others about vampires, Frankenstein, werewolf, so at least check out The House That Dripped Blood. All right, the next one, number 4, is a franchise, and there are many horror story franchises, but this one has scared me the most, and it's called Paranormal Activity. This was originally made in 2007, and I believe there were 6 other films that followed up, but I think they all paled in comparison to the first one. This is by the filmmaker Oren Peli. I think he may have been in the films himself. And these are similar to Blair Witch Project, like found footage films. And basically it's about a family that is haunted by a demon that stalks them and ultimately murders members of the family and other innocent bystanders. And I think the reason this one scared me so much isn't so much the movie itself, but what happened afterward. So I went to see it by myself. My husband does not like horror movies. And I came home and told him about what the movie, how much it scared me. And we were in bed. I was talking to him, and all of a sudden we heard a crash in the closet. And it just creeped both of us out so much. It might have just been something that fell, but it just seemed like I brought a little bit of Paranormal Activity home with me. So anyway, that's why this one was particularly scary to me. Number 3. This one stars David Bowie, Susan Sarandon, and Catherine Deneuve, and it's a cult favorite. It's called The Hunger. And David Bowie plays the lover of this gorgeous immortal vampire who's Catherine Deneuve. Her name is Miriam, and he's been led to believe that he will live forever with her. But unfortunately, he starts to age very quickly, kind of like a horrible living death. And Miriam finds a new companion in Susan Sarandon, whose name is Sarah in the film, and she's some kind of scientist or something. And so this erotic love triangle emerges, and power struggles and that kind of thing, but it's so creepy. The cinematography is beautiful and the soundtrack is haunting, so you've got to check that one out. The first time I saw it, I was in New York City. I saw it with a guy I was dating, and it was just a very memorable experience for me. All right, number 2. This movie is proof that it doesn't have to take place around Halloween to be scary. And this is one of my favorites. It was made a couple years ago, and the name of the movie is called Midsummer. It stars Florence Pugh, and it's about a couple that travel to Sweden to visit their friends in a rural hometown for the Midsummer Festival, and that's the summer solstice in June. But what happens is an idyllic retreat quickly deteriorates into an increasingly violent and bizarre competition at the hands of a pagan cult. So this one really creeps me out. There's a lot of symbolism, a lot of Swedish traditions, and it's a film like I've never seen before. There's no predictable plot. It's just a lot of twists and turns, and I really urge you to see this one. It's definitely worth the watch. It's a little bit long, but you won't be sorry. Before I announce my number one scariest movie, I'm going to include a few honorable mentions because I feel like these are good movies. They may not be my favorites necessarily, but I feel like they're worth a watch. Number one is called Let the Right One In, another Swedish film. It's about these 12-year-old kids. This girl, one of the girls is a vampire, and she becomes friends with this little boy who is being picked on in school. And it's kind of a love story, but it's just a beautiful film, and it's a little creepy and violent too, but it's very subtle and very beautiful in its own way. And then here's the predictable ones. Rosemary's Baby. It's a little campy, and I even find this one a little bit funny in a way. So it just depends on what you like. I think it's a great film, but it's not one of my favorites, but it's definitely one of the best horror movies ever made. Also, The Shining. Probably everyone has seen that film. Jack Nicholson, you've got to see it. But again, for some reason, it doesn't really scare me that much. It's just one that's worth mentioning. And the last honorable mention is the movie, the Stephen King adaptation of his book, It. I think this one was good. Another movie I saw by myself in a theater that was completely deserted. It was during a hurricane and nobody was out, but I saw it by myself. And for some reason, Bill Skarsgård as the Pennywise, the killer clown, is one that will haunt me for the rest of my life. Okay, number one. The number one scariest film is, of course, for me, The Exorcist. This is like pee your pants scary movie, and I can't really watch it anymore. It's based on a novel by William Peter Blatty, and it's starring Linda Blair, Ellen Burstyn, and Max von Sydow. So, of course, it's about the demonic possession of a 12-year-old girl. Something about that 12-year-old age that has something to do with horror movies. And her mother's attempt to rescue her through an exorcism conducted by two priests. I just find it a very heavy psychological film. I watched it one time by myself, stupidly. My husband was out of town on a business trip, and I couldn't sleep the entire night. So I really can't watch this one, at least in its entirety, at all anymore. But those memories will haunt me the rest of my life. I just think it is, it's maybe even a little dated now, but I mean, that picture of Linda Blair's head twisting around, never erase that from my memory. Okay, so now I have my own ghost story, and it's actually a very sweet story. And I wanted to include it just so that you kind of see what has happened to me in my life, and just some very nice memories I have. I don't think this one is scary, but it is a little interesting. So a long time ago, as a music therapist, I worked in a nursing home. And one of my favorite residents of all time was this woman. I'll just call her Gigi. And she was one of the last Siegfried girls of the Siegfried Follies in New York City. So she was a dancer, she was an entertainer, and just a sparkling personality. She was from Jacksonville, Florida, so she had this little southern accent, and she was just cute as a button. So anyway, she was on one of my floors that I worked on, so I talked to her quite a bit. And we had a group that she was in once, and it was around Halloween, and we were talking about ghosts. And I said, "Do you believe in ghosts?" I asked the whole group, and everyone's like, "No, I don't believe in it." And she's like, "Oh, yeah, I believe in ghosts. And I don't want to talk about it because it scares me." But she's like, "I definitely believe in ghosts." So that kind of ended the conversation. So fast forward a couple more years. She was old. I would say, here's a picture of her, by the way. I want to include a picture of her myself that I found. Anyway, so she wasn't feeling good. It was a Friday afternoon, and I went to see her. And we had this thing we always said to each other. She always said to me, "Keep your fingers crossed and everything else." And I don't know what that meant. Maybe it's keep your legs crossed. I don't know what she meant by that, but she always said, "Keep your fingers crossed." So she wasn't feeling good and she wasn't breathing well. And I said, "I hope you get better by, when the weekend is over, when I come back to see you on Monday. I hope you're feeling better." She's like, "I don't know. I may not make it." And she said, "Honestly, I feel like I'm ready to go." And I'm like, "Okay." I said, "I'll come back and see you on Monday." So I come back and see her on Monday, and she had just passed away. So her body was laid out in the room. Her roommate was freaking out, this little Italian woman running around the room like a chicken with her head cut off. And I just went to pay, oh, I'm getting chills while I'm talking about this. I went to pay my respects to her, and I said to her body, I said, "Keep your fingers crossed." And all of a sudden, the lights in the room went out. I feel like only the lights in the room, not in the hallway, not in any other room. And I was a little freaked out, and her roommate was freaking out. So it was, to me, that was her sign saying that she heard me and that she had passed and that she was okay. So I will always remember little Gigi. I'm getting chills while I'm saying this. But anyway, maybe she's here with me right now. All right, well, that ends my Halloween edition of The Psychic Scene by Jennifer Jean. If you would like to work with me, I would be honored. You can contact me at readingsbyjenniferjean.com. And also, I'm thinking about starting a seance series. So we'd gather people virtually on Zoom or something like that and do a virtual seance. So if you are interested, please send a message below, and also include your favorite Halloween movies. I'd be interested to see what scares you. Anyway, thank you so much. Happy Halloween. Be well, be safe. Namaste.